Hey, hello, everybody. I'm just really elated at being here today with all of you. I feel that if you're out there because you're up to something, you're committed to something. And today I'm honored that Zoe Ministries has requested that I participate in this. I am definitely a critical stakeholder. Another way to say that is the success of Zoe Ministries is my ultimate concern and commitment. So today, when I'm working through these slides, my request is that you're really looking from the world of the prophetic. So this first slide, you'll see coming home. So sometimes it feels like we're not at home in our body. It feels like the world has deserted us somehow. It feels like we're strangers in a strange land. That's what the world can occur as right now for you. So this whole presentation is really all about coming home. And it's about coming home to prophetic communication. What does that mean? Well, that means how could you communicate in such a way that who you are and what you're committed to as a prophet can boost power, relevance, and magic. Yeah, magic. So our access to that is language. Language as an access to sustain participation. So as we're working together on the prophetic communications, what I want you to start to consider is when your language is a match for the prophetic, your participation will go out the roof. And you can sustain it for a lifetime and beyond. Okay, so Archbishop, could you go to the next slide, please? So welcome. So today you will be participating in a guided conversation about how to make the difference in a world that is seeking you. The reason why I'm saying is seeking you is people seek people who can give them the answers. And people who are in the prophetic order, who are listening and thinking and breathing inside the word of God, you have a unique kind of capacity and a unique kind of access, and people will seek you out. We live in a world of fast moving particles. Everything's going so fast that we can't really think. It's just going faster and faster and faster and faster. It's like bullets coming out of a gun, and it's coming so fast, you can't think. You can't react. You don't know what to do. Today is one of those special days in a human being's lifetime where you could get a chance to actually reflect on what you're up to, who you are, and the impact you can make. So over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to explore the power of words and the impact that prophetic communication can have on your life. So as you're doing this, I think the best way to get at this is look at a place in your life right now where you want to be far more effective. You desire to be really, really great, but there's something that gets in the way of your commitment, something that gets in the way of your heart. Maybe you're being impacted personally by the virus and feel really frightened. Maybe you're concerned about your well-being, your financial well-being, all of the things that human beings are concerned for. Just pick one place right now that you want to cause a breakthrough in over the next several minutes. Now, how you cause a breakthrough is through your listening. You're listening for what can impact what you're up to. Okay, ready for the next slide? Okay, now let's start here. So I'm going to start 2 millennia BC. We're going to start right there. And this is in the Mesopotamia Valley, or the whole country of Mesopotamia. There's many different towns and townships, but we're in the middle of the Mesopotamia. And the Mesopotamia is sometimes called Shirin in Hebrew. And it is where the Tower of Babel was believed to have been created. Next slide, please. There it is. The Tower of Babel. That is a story my father used to share all the time when I was a little girl about the confounding of language. It's a very, very common story. It starts out where humans had one language and prospered on the earth and decided at one point that they wanted to build this Tower of Babel. It angered God, and he then at that point took away the one language and confounded man with many languages. If you were to go and look at scriptures or read about the Tower of Babel, there are a number of interpretations that are attached to the Tower of Babel. And some of them believe that God punished us. Some of them believe it was just an opportunity for us to begin to distinguish language. Today, what I want you to do is just look at it from the Tower of Babel, the many different languages, and from the word Babel. Now, if you look up the word Babel in Hebrew, it means to confuse, to confound. And communication is a very representational thing. It's symbolic. I want you to start to consider that the Tower of Babel is symbolic in some ways, that there is a lesson we're supposed to get. So I want you to kind of go through this journey with me and start to look at the many, many conversations one could get out of the Tower of Babel. I mean, there's just thousands and thousands of different interpretations, but the commitment we're at today is all about prophetic communication. Prophetic communication can unconfound the confounded. It can lift clouds. Where others see clouds, you see opportunity. This is not woo-woo, it really is. Where you are standing and where you are looking from is where you get your answers. Our holy scriptures give us our answers. It teaches us how to live. The question I'm asking all the prophets is, what is that Tower of Babel trying to tell us? Let's go to the next slide, please. So there's another Tower of Babel. That's called the coronavirus. That's what it looks like when it's magnified and looks like it's swallowing up humanity. I'm going to tell you that all of this is an illusion. It's all an illusion. The reason why we're calling it an illusion is because language shapes what people can see, shapes what they cannot see. And right now, I want people to start to consider that we've always lived with famine. We've always lived with disease. We've always lived with all kinds of conditions, including bliss, joy, happiness. But it's always, always already been there. One moment at a time, 1 second at a time. Look throughout your day, you will see it. You're happily going along and then someone hits your car. Or you get to the grocery store and there's no food on the shelves because everybody's running. It's an illusion. Not an illusion like it's not happening. Come on, it's happening. Life is always happening. In prophetic communication, what you're looking for, though, is what's the language? What's the communication that sets me free so I can be about my Father's business until the end? So the coronavirus is not fake. It's not phony. It's not unreal. It's probably been here the entire time we've been here. And it's been below our physical observation, just as polio was and smallpox and many other things. But there are other things that are below the line, including your greatness. The things about you that could make a difference for the people in your life right now. So we want to put our sights on how do we live in a world that is chaotic? And how do we take that learning to continue to be about our Father's business? Let's go to the next slide, please. So here are a few takeaways that I want you to walk away from with regard to the conversation we're in. Prophetic communication requires true sound listening. The emphasis is not on your speaking, it's on your listening. Who are you listening to? What are you listening to? And are you listening or are you just hearing? The future that we all get is the future we chose, and we forget it. See, if you choose a future called I don't make a difference, that language thwarts prophetic communication. What it literally does is destroys your access to being connected to God, being connected to your word. So what you're doing is you're starting now to consider that whenever you have thoughts that have you afraid or thoughts that have you think you're out of control, start thinking about what will you create? Not what you will get through, not what you will survive, but what will you create in the midst of all the chaos? See, what if through all the plagues and droughts and famine, we only got truer to our calling? That everything that was happening just got us more and more present, more and more able, more and more powerful. We grow and we grow and we grow because we're connected. We're connected to higher power. Prophetic language and listenings are vast enough to sustain us as long as we're clear about it. And here's the 3 questions I'd like you to walk away with. 1, who is listening? That question is, are you listening as a prophet? Or are you listening as someone who's broken? What are you listening to? Are you listening to the listening? Are you listening to what is actually being said? Or are you listening to what you think is being said? And then finally, we're committed that you spend the rest of your life communicating from the word of a prophet. So I'm going to stop now and give people a chance to ask questions if they have any. I mean, that was a lot. That's the last slide. Master Prophet, I'm open for any questions.
All right. Okay. Prophetess Natasha, would you like to manage the board for the questions?
Sure thing. There are no questions at this time.
Okay. If you have any questions, you can raise your hand and then we can bring you live.
And we can also go back to a slide if we need to.
Go back to a slide. Okay.
Because that was a lot of data.
Hi, Coach Jean Lloyd. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
It's always good to hear you. You're so sobering. Can you expound a little bit more on the future that we all get is the future we chose to forget?
Yeah, that's mainly, if you look at your life, everything you have in it, you chose it. It's not an accident. Somewhere along the line, you said yes to something or no to something. And so your whole world kind of opens up from there. You have any specific thing in mind when you ask that question?
No, I'm just really thinking about what is it that I am putting in my future by not doing something today?
I think it's more like, look at what you have today.
Okay.
If you look at what you have today, you'll actually know. You'll actually know what you're listening for. You'll know what you have. So, for instance, what would you say you have today that you're proud of, or not, or you want to change?
That I'm very proud of. I'm very proud of my determination.
So, guess what? How does life show up for you? Your determination does what?
My determination causes me to continue even when things may appear difficult.
Yeah. So you have this beautiful life because of where you're listening from and looking from, and you chose that.
Mm.
Got it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.
This is Pastor. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to see, we have a question in the chat room, but I can bring it up after yours, Pastor Audrey.
I just briefly wanted to know, Coach Lloyd, and thank you for this presentation because it makes us rethink. How do we recalibrate in this season from the choices that we made in the past in order to go more successfully into the future? How do we kind of wash ourselves or cleanse ourselves so that we can, when we recognize a true prophet, know that these are the instructions that we should follow if we haven't been clear in our listening of the past?
I think you can tell when something resonates and when it doesn't. So when you're connected, and so the biggest piece about prophetic communication is that you're connected to the Almighty. You're connected to source, whatever way you call source. And when a communication is being delivered, it has a resonance to it. An authentic communication has a real resonance to it and a truth to it that cannot be denied. As a matter of fact, a lot of people call it the knock. The more you try to run for it, from it, the more it's there. But see, dissonance is how you know you're just talking. There's no connection. There's no communication. And mostly what's going on, people are listening to a lot of talk. Noise, we call it noise. Yeah, 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 yeah. It's like that. Yeah, 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 yeah. It just is confounding, is what it is. See, to me in the Tower of Babel, what you're really listening to is the two realms of language. There's one where it confounds folks, it's noise, and it starts upset and anger. And then there's the world of when it's stated, it resonates, it rings with truth, it connects things, it helps you to sort stuff out. So you would only be carrying forward that which is true communication.
So Gene, this is Master Prophet. So you're actually distinguishing the difference between noise and speech.
Yes.
When it is speech, it's a spoken word that drives something forward that is created.
That's right.
When it's noise, it only produces upset.
Yes.
And it only drives what is in the past that could be looked at as destructive or have no creative functionality.
That's right. You can't create anything. See, with noise, all you're going to get is the past extended. You're not going to get anything new. And see, when you're connected, you're creating things just in the moment. I'm not talking about just any old thing. You're creating something that actually works. And mostly we're too afraid to do that. We want to have certainty. We want to have that it's gonna work, and we got a guarantee, but that defies faith itself. It's you take the actions because they're there to take, and that's what creates a great life.
So like this prophetic college could have ended up as noise, but we took something from it and developed speech that made it come into some type of functionality.
Exactly. And you weren't stopped by anything. I mean, that's why I was so excited. I was like, oh my goodness. It's one of the few examples you will see of something happening that looks so much bigger than you. And you're going, oh, well, how am I gonna make it work? I'm gonna pull whatever I can together, whatever technology is available. I'm gonna pull all my staff. I'm gonna call on all my prophets. I'm gonna call on God himself. Hello. Now you got some real imagination going. Yeah.
Yes, because we heard all of a sudden, do the prophetic college the last week. Am I right, Bishop Bloomer? This Wednesday, or this Wednesday and Thursday. After we declared it, we did the commercial for it. Then all of a sudden, New York City is leading in the coronavirus, and they're telling people not to come here. And so we had to take what landed as noise
Yes.
and say, what is the spoken word in the moment? And in the last 72 hours, all of a sudden, we just said Zoom.
See, Zoom to Zoom.
I mean, when did you get word that you were speaking here?
Yesterday or the day before.
Yes, that's created.
Yeah, for me, when that knock comes, I go. I don't stop and question, because it was definitely a communication. It was a communication to support and empower folks, and to take all of the woo-woo out of the space. Listen, we're gonna die. It's true. It's just true. And we don't do things that jeopardize other people's health. But at the same time, we gotta take it in stride and find a way to empower, find a way to connect. And that's what this does. It puts us in a position where we can connect as a community and be able to bring light to where there's darkness. And that, to me, is the Tower of Babel. It's just a lot going on all the time. And it never stops. And there's all these different people saying different things, most of which is noise. And we have to be able to distinguish the difference between talking versus communication. A real communication steals all the noise.
Wow.
Gene, this is Bishop Bloomer.
Hey.
Hey.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you also. Great to see you also. I want to go back to illusion. In light of, you got people who are listening, and the presentation on illusion was just great. So we must deal with the Babel that is around the.
Yes, that's good. Babel and Babel.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And I don't want to lose my point. So back to the illusion, because you'll have people who are listening and they're saying, did they say that this is not going on? Noise. And we didn't say that.
No, we didn't.
So let's first define illusion.
Okay.
And then I want to have a talk about defeating the Babel that's around us.
You don't want to defeat it. You want to transform it.
Transform it.
Yeah, see, when you fight it, it gets worse. So everything we do is we lean into it. Just like we leaned into, don't go nowhere, don't do nothing, and you all created this wonderful platform. So you didn't get defeated by it because you didn't give into it. You didn't try to push against it. You included it, and look what you created by including it.
Right. Be not conformed, but be transformed. I got you. I'm with you.
Right.
I'm with you.
Right now, we go to the part that's illusionary.
Yeah.
What creates illusions is what people make stuff mean. Making it mean something where you cannot get a proper view of the world. And so the illusion is we're helpless. You hear some of it. It's Armageddon. I'm not saying this to, what's that word? I'm not marginalizing. This is not about they're wrong and I'm right. No, this is about, if you're gonna create something for the moments you have here now. If the world is coming to an end, it's coming to an end. What are you gonna do right now though? Who are the people you have not communicated and shown your love to? Who are the people that you have not embraced today? What happens after this is over? what impact are you going to make now for the life after? So the illusion is, I think I see with my eyes. No, we see with the heart if we're connected.
I think the reason why it touched me is because I see the world ending every day, and I see the world created every day.
That's right.
Evening and morning, even and morning. And the challenges that was set to take me out yesterday, I overcame them because I had the right creative words to, I'm gonna use your word now, transform the system that was set to take me out.
That's right. And I'm thinking, well, feel so blessed is that ministry includes what I do to empower others, because the world of language and communication, that's the only place we create. We don't create any other way but with words. And so we have to be responsible.
Isn't that how the creator created? He said.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. In the beginning, there was the word.
But he created out of the noise.
Sure did.
Because in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void. Mm-hmm. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said. So let's look at this for a moment, Jean. And I know you're masterful at this. Do you think mankind has a problem with being with the void and not knowing that the void is an important part of creation?
Amen. Amen. It's almost, look, you can't create anything without void. You have to have the darkness, because you can't create on top of something. Void means nothing's there. If there's nothing there, I can now create fully. I can create with all my heart, all my mind, all my soul, without painting on top of the Mona Lisa. We start with no Mona Lisa. And then we create, and we create, and we create. So when you go back to those scriptures, what I always used to hear when I was a kid was, wow, this is like a blank slate and we can paint. And that's really why you want the void. That's why the illusion of all these things happening thwarts our ability to think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to a question here, if we can. I believe Dana, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Tell us your name and where you're from.
Yes, my name's Dana Childers, and at this moment I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, actually from the Lord, but I'm in Memphis, Tennessee at this moment.
What's your question?
Yeah, my question, well, it's a question, but it's a statement. Thank you. Nice hearing you and Dr. Jean Lloyd. This has got to say, this is a very prophetic moment for me. This is the first time that a prophetic college, and after the last 7 years, I've tried to be at the prophetic and even paid the way through to get there. So out of all the losses, I see a determination that I've kept in this, and a listening, and the Babel and the tower you were talking about.
Yes.
I can see it on two different levels. There is a lot of void. There is a lot of conversation and a lot of babble and chaos. But I also can see when a prophetic community and people stay together on one accord and lifting each other up, and us allowing each other to be used, like you just said, can be definitely out of the void. We can see exactly where God is leading us. And I just wanted to share that, and thank you all for, I think this is one of the best prophetic colleges I've heard myself. So I just wanted to share that and say, God bless you, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's go to Rosalind right now. Okay, Rosalind, you can unmute your line.
Hi.
Hello, tell us your name and where you're from.
Rosalind from Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Good. How you heard about us today?
I've been looking at Larry Reed, and you've been talking about it on the 24-hour revival, which I've been listening to each day since it started.
All right. All right. Okay. What's your question?
So Bishop Bloomer asked one of the questions I had. So thank you very much. I think it's Dr. Jean for that answer. But the other question I had is on your last slide, you say that one of the takeaways is we should communicate going forward from the word of a prophet. Can you speak to, elaborate more on that and speak to maybe how to avoid or quiet the distractions that come along with being focused and speaking from a point of view that others in our life won't have, since everybody doesn't listen to a prophet and everyone doesn't have a prophet in their life?
Well, first you got to do some serious work with your own listening. That's one of the things that is the toughest thing to do, is that what's between those two ears, there's a voice in there and it never stops talking. And that voice really is the voice of humanity. Now, what I mean when I say that, just kind of visualize that Tower of Babel, that's many millennia ago. Those voices are still with us. It's not like we just get born and everybody starts over with language. We have ancestral memory. We have a very, very old part of our brain that carries all of that history. And so for many times, what we're really doing is dealing with our own dissonance. Well, you can't do that, or you're no good, or I hate my mother. All those thoughts are not your thoughts. Like, you didn't sit down and generate that. It's popped up in your head. So just like that pops up in your head, thousands of other things do that are not generated by you, not created by you, but it is part of the human noise. So if you're going to communicate from the space of a prophet, you got to get connected to the word. The original intent of who we said we would be as men and women of God, and do whatever we have to do to stay there. Some people have to, like I get up in the morning, I meditate, and my meditation's to God. It's not a woo-woo thing, it's connected to him. And then I look for more ways to access my capacities to remain true in the face of all this name calling, dissonance, people being denied their rights. If you look in our modern day, we got thousands of issues going on with every known part of the human family. For me, if we stand for bringing something new and something powerful from our being connected, a lot of great things will start happening. If you look, it's already started. It's already started. People are finding ways to reach out they haven't done in decades, centuries. It's already happening. So what do? You practice, 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 staying present in a high stakes game.
Okay, thank you, Rosalind. We'll be looking to hear more from you.
Thank you so much. I love that. Thank you.
All right, bless you. All right, any other questions from?
I thought it was amazing to deal with for a few moments ancestral voices, because it's sort of like the kid that I had to counsel in our ministry who would bite the bottom of his lip all the time. So he licked the bottom of his lip raw. He had never ever saw his dad. He'd been in our church for about 9 years. It's gone from 9 or 10 years. He'd gone from age 8, 9 to 18, 19 years old, and he's still licking the bottom of his lip raw. And finally, he met up with his dad. Never saw him in life. He was in a meeting. He met up with his dad, and his dad licked the bottom of his lip. Unbelievable.
Brilliant.
the ancestral connection. And in deliverance and in the church, we deal with demons and so on and so forth like that. And we have this concept that, oh, some spirit is going to jump off of someone and jump on the other. And I don't believe that. I believe that there's an ancestral connection out of scripture that talks about it.
Yes.
The demon says in Matthews, he says, when the evil spirit goes out of a house, he says, goes into the dry places, can't find rest. He says, I will return to my house.
Okay.
To my house. He's going back to things that are uncorrected, things that have not been put in place in order. And in my own life, there's been an ancestral spirit that has been confronted and is breaking. And that's the ancestral spirit of illiteracy. I learned how to read in my 40s. And no one in my family, many in the family could not read, still even right now. And so I thought that was very, very powerful. Then you ended it by saying there's thousands and thousands of questions and issues that people are trying to find, and they're reaching out, trying to find that voice, that place. If you turn the television on, every 12 or 13 minutes, there's an ancestral commercial on where trying to get people to go into their DNA to find out who they are, amidst all of the noise that is going on. And I believe communicating only with the word of a prophet, I believe that God has connected us to a voice, but the noise out there falses us, takes us and put us in spiritual foster care. And Reed talked about that in the first segment when Only Love was up, began to talk about returning back to the voice that you left and that you are connected to. And I think that that's the illusion that many people are under. That if you're great and you're powerful and you're a celebrity, then I'm going to follow you and become you. When you need to tap into yourself and become you and not become him. I'm sorry. That's
Amen, man. Amen.
There's a question that someone typed in, Jean. Says, okay, so my mom is in early stages of Alzheimer and my daughter was molested by the deacon in my father's church at 7 or 8 years old. Jesus. Are you saying that they somehow chose this future?
Yes, I am. I don't mean it. Now you got to be careful about how you listen to what I'm saying, because I'm not saying this from the same space that most of the noise speaks from. So there's this thing called genetics. We have genetics, and there are certain codes in our body, and it goes a certain way. For some of us, we have genetic with regard to Alzheimer's, and I'm very familiar with that. I lost a very wonderful aunt, my favorite, as a matter of fact, to Alzheimer's. I'm not saying she went in and picked a genetic disposition for Alzheimer's at all, by any shape of your imagination. Am I saying they chose that as a doomsday weapon? What I am saying, though, is we do get to say how we're going to be about Alzheimer's. You don't lose power because of the circumstance of Alzheimer's. It's a fact of life. We are going to die and something is going to get us. It's your relationship to it that we must alter. It's sort of like you've seen people on the subway with no arms and no legs, and then they get off the subway and they're going to train in a sports camp. That just defies. You know what I mean? They're putting on their prosthetics and they're running in the Olympics because they are no longer bound by their body or bound by what is happening to them. What they've done is they've chosen what they got and they shaped their future. So there's a way as a prophet, we can actually take what's happening and begin to create from what has happened. Now, some of the things you're going to need support in, especially with the trauma, you're going to need support from the health community, and they're out there. when you're traumatized. So I hope that what I said opened up something. And if it didn't, please let me know so I can continue to create something with you that opens your heart up and helps you forgive and heal.
You know,
Right.
my mother had early stages of dementia, and but no matter what the situation was, she died at 86 years old. Dementia never crossed over into her spirituality. She always knew who Jesus was, although sometimes she didn't know who we were.
Yeah.
She knew all the songs and the hymns, and so it's two dimensions. And in my book, I wrote about, I had a dream one night, Gene, and in the dream, there was this man riding a big wheel. When I was a kid coming up, they had this big wheel, and he's riding the big wheel, and he rolled the big wheel up into the wall and slammed into the wall and turned around, stood up and started walking away from the wall, fell down and got the big wheel again and rode it. And I didn't know what was happening, but that was during the time that my mother was transitioning, going into this mind loss and mindsets and different things of that nature. And I asked her, I said, Ma, how is it that sometimes you don't remember this, but you can remember that? And I'm not a doctor, but I guess I just wanted to know. And she said, son, there are days I forget to remember I'm supposed to forget.
Yeah.
Never forgot that.
Wow.
I hope that contributed to the caller.
All right, another question. So therefore, when it is uncertainty to move forward in an idea, but the idea is constant in the mind with the feeling of joy, that joy feels like fulfillment. Move on it no matter how many times tried and setback?
You got to be careful about feelings. We do have feelings, but we just can't control them. So sometimes joy can be your downfall if you're taking action based upon how you feel, but the where you're laying that joy is in a place that doesn't really work. So I can give you a short example of that. It's like you have these feelings of love and you see this person, and then you have all of these feelings of love and feelings of wow, I want to be with this guy, right? And you go with those feelings. Well, that's biological. Feelings are biological. We don't have any control over them. So therefore, you may be choosing the wrong man. The only place to get fulfillment from is that you have literally been able to connect to the authentic communication that's there versus what you think is there. See, noise can sound like, wow, this is so great. I'm so happy. That can be noise too. The only place to experience fulfillment is having done what you said you would do, and you did it.
Well,
So noise can sound like do a little dance, make a little love, down tonight.
Get down tonight. Get down tonight. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. It's just you just got to be clear about impact. So communication is always about impact. It's about what are you out to impact. So if you go in front of a room and what you're really trying to do, you're saying one thing, but you really got another thing in the background. The thing in the background is your problem. So we get real clear that our listening matches our speaking.
And then the thing in the background is what works the room.
Yeah.
Even though we think we're doing something out front.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing is I'm looking at the impact to see if my intention and the words that come out of my mouth match. If they don't match, noise.
Noise. So this was the second part of a question, which I believe you answer. Does uncertainty mean that there is something within self, the mind, this is from Shanita again, needs to be realigned with the appropriate speech?
Amen.
Okay.
Amen. Well said.
Okay. This is from Anonymous. Also, can it be that all of this virus is happening because it was spoken to existence? Am I on the right track talking about the future creation?
The virus, most of these things that look new, they've been around way longer. That's why they can't nail it. See, viruses mutate. So this one is this is another version of SARS. And if you start pulling the thread on most communications, what you'll discover is it's just another name for something else. And it's the same stuff. As they used to say, nothing new under the sun.
Mhm.
So we've always lived with this kind of, matter of fact, when we first were on the planet, we didn't have disease. We got disease when we started farming, and then even more disease when we started eating meat. We started herding. There's nothing wrong with eating meat. I'm just saying the animals have germs and bacteria that humans can't live with. So coronavirus came from a bat, and we're living with all kinds of stuff. That's why you don't want to freak out.
I read an article. I read an article before about what you just said about the disease showing up in farming in the early centuries. It started up with farming, and
yeah, when we started messing around with refining wheat and corn, that's when it started.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And I want to say something about this because I have a mother that's dealing with in the stages of dementia. And the person asks, I still don't understand how they would choose dementia or a child choose to be molested. I want to say this is when I was doing my research on dementia, they starting to call that type 3 diabetes. And I was like, to the physician, how y'all getting type 3 diabetes? Getting this to be type 3. They says it seemed to be traced back to the way eating. They can't figure out any other way that this is coming up but by the way of eating. Now this is science looking at it. So what would you say? A person says, I still don't understand how they would choose dementia or a child choose to be molested. Can you explain that a different way?
Yes, I was really concerned that I was going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm sorry if I put something in your space. I'm not saying that they went out and picked it. They didn't do that. I'm merely saying that whatever circumstances happen in life, that the best thing we can do with it is accept it and then do what we can to live as comfortable a life as possible. I didn't mean she went out and asked for it or something. It's not that simple, but it is. If I do get it, the worst thing I can do is pretend it's not there or resist it. I've got to find a way to live with it. That's all I was saying. I hope that cleans that up for you.
Okay. All right, Coach Jean Lloyd. Well, thank you so much. We are. I know we've been doing some seminars on relationship to grief, and that's all the questions we have right now.
Okay.
But do you think people in this season need to consider what grief is or what a relationship with grief can start to look like?
Yes, I do. Because I think people put grief in a box. You can hear the pain on some of the questions. And because they don't know how to unpack it, you get stuck with it. And grief is an emotion that you can grow from it and actually find the gift in it. But we've had so much loss and pain in our communities. We don't know how to do that. So the work around grief is incredibly important.
All right. Well, we were just listening to Coach Jean Lloyd, and thank you so much for what you're doing. What are you up to now, Jean, before you go?
Oh my goodness, I'm here in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been doing work with the community here now for maybe the past 5 years. And right now, one of the things I'm doing is I'm working with ACLU, and I am working with them. We are transforming the model for civil rights and activism, where we can now begin to consider that you can have a conversation with anybody and make that kind of difference. So I'm working with lobbyists, I'm working with activists, I'm working with grassroots people, and working with Muslim scholars. I'm working with all kinds of people from different faiths. So I'm really happy about that. It makes me grow as a human being.
Well, listen, thank you so much for showing up in the world, and thank you for showing up on this call today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I appreciate everything everybody's doing.
All right.
God bless you all.
God bless you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.